When you look at the Iranian problem, this has got to be one of the more difficult foreign policy challenges the Obama administration faces, because at the end of the day, these guys have a lot of cash that comes out of the petroleum exports.
Right.
They are determined, it seems, to move along a path towards some kind of nuclear capability. And we've tried sanctions, we've tried isolation, we've tried ostracism, and now, frankly, Obama has tried some kind of engagement and some kind of offers, which I think both you and I thought was a good idea as an opening gambit. Now, none of it is working. What do you do?
I think it's too soon to say everything has failed. I think you keep doing what you're doing. In other words, I think what you need to do is keep pushing for stronger sanctions and keep talking to, or being ready to talk to the Iranian leadership if they're willing to talk. Those things, and support the reformers in the streets. Those three things, they're not mutually exclusive. It's exactly what we did for 40 years with the Soviet Union. We talked to them about nuclear. We negotiated arms control agreements. We supported the dissidents in the Soviet Union. We worked hard on Soviet Jewish immigrants to get them the right to leave. We met with dissidents when we would go over there as Secretary of State. And so there's no reason why we can't do all three of those things and continue to do them.
But that was a part of a policy of containment, keeping the Soviet Union kind of in a box and pressing it.
Right.
We didn't attack them militarily. Would you say that you're uncomfortable with the idea of a military attack on Iran?
Look, let me say this. Iran is a huge force for instability, not just in the region, but in the world generally. And if they acquire a nuclear weapon, it could set off a major nuclear arms race in that very difficult part of the world. So we don't underestimate the problem when I say what I'm about to say. I don't know that there is a military solution. Most of the people, knowledgeable people I talk to, say there is no satisfactory military solution, that a strike will delay but not prevent their acquiring a nuclear weapon. That's not to say that you say, okay, then they should get it, but it's very questionable whether a military solution exists. As a matter of fact, in the last administration, it's my understanding that the Israelis wanted to strike, and they came to us and they asked for bunker-busting bombs and refueling, in-flight refueling capabilities and overflight rights and deconfliction codes, and we said, no, we're not going to do that. That's not in our interest. Why isn't it in our interest? Because a strike that just delays will create untold. Nobody knows what the consequences of that would be. And one thing we do know is that would strengthen the hardline regime in Iran at the very time that they're experiencing great domestic dissatisfaction. We ought to play on that domestic dissatisfaction. And you'll get differing assessments of how long it'll be before Iran can obtain a nuclear weapon, but even a former head of Mossad not long ago, a year or so, said it'll be 3 or 4 years. So we ought not, if you never take the military option off the table, but we ought not to be rushing into that.
You were the last administration as Secretary of State to successfully put pressure on the government of Israel to restrain itself on settlement activity, and in that sense make gestures that were read by the other side, by the Palestinians, as kind of pro-peace and pro, some kind of settlement. The Obama administration has tried to do something, but the peace process is going nowhere.
Yeah, before I get into peace, let me go back to Iran for just 1 minute, because I want to make sure you... What you heard me arguing for is the idea that deterrence can be effective. Yeah. It was effective for 40 years against the Soviet Union. And I'm not at all sure it wouldn't be effective against these Ayatollahs, who may be flaky, but they like self-preservation. So, we've got all this unused strategic nuclear capability, and I think we called them up and said it takes 30 seconds to re-aim those missiles at you, and by the way, they're now re-aimed at you, and you so much as blink toward Israel or toward us or one of our allies, moderate Arab states, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, the Gulf state, you'll be the subject. You won't like it. It'll be It'll be bad news.
So you would extend the nuclear umbrella?
I think we did that, and that would require us then to extend a nuclear umbrella to Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and the Gulf states, and I think we should do that. I mean, I think that's something we ought to keep in an arrow that we have in our quiver, and we ought to keep it there. Deterrence worked well against the Soviet Union. I think it's wrong to simply reject out of hand that somehow deterrence won't work here. So that's something I just wanted to add. Now, on the peace process,